We're back. It is Sunday evening, 9 o'clock. The first week of our live chats, although we're not really chatting. I don't like the shadow on my neck here. Get rid of that thing. I'm putting a scarf on to cover this horrible neck of mine. How you doing, everybody? How was your weekend, your crazy week of scrambling your classes? We're all scrambling. Including myself. This one is for both classes. This is for my film class and for my contemporary television class. So if you saw the description, please tune into both. You'll need them both. For the film class, I'm going to post the quiz tomorrow. You've had plenty of time to watch that documentary I asked you to watch, Easy Rider, Raging Bulls. And the quiz will be tomorrow. I'll put it on there. And it's worth the same as an essay, and you'll have 24 hours to complete it. And that's plenty of time to complete it. But you're going to have to watch the documentary and take notes and try to figure it out. There are going to be 5 very short essay questions. It won't take much to respond. If you saw the doc, then you'll be fine. The main thing this week is we're all playing this thing by ear. This is going to be our first assignment since the pandemic. Hope you're all well. Hope you're all scrubbing your hands feverishly. Hope you're being creative. Just to give you an update, I'm working on a film. That's not going to stop me from working on a film. I'll make a film in this room, and it'll be interesting too. It's amazing what you could do in isolation, and it clears the mind. Anyway, I hope your minds are clear. You're not full of anxiety, because it's a very anxious world we're living in right now, mostly because we're looking at an indefinite hiatus. We don't know. They're announcing summer school, but we don't know what's going to happen yet, if it's going to be at the campus or online. We shall see, and I hope anybody out there is not touched by this, or a loved one's not touched by this, because it's pretty brutal, and it's for real. And if you go to the store now, people are wearing masks. They're looking at you strange if you don't have a mask on. It's hard to say. Group mentality is not my favorite, but you just be careful, be safe, and be smart about it. That's all I could say. Anyway, I'm going to make this fairly brief, because I know y'all have a ton of different classes, and my class is a little bit simpler because we could watch these films online. We're watching films online anyway, or television, and but I'm still trying to keep connection to you. And once I figure out a Zoom meeting, maybe some of you are doing Zoom, maybe I'll try to have one of those this week, where we all are online together in our isolation. I don't know what day or time. I got to figure out how to use it. Anyway, and I'm going to do that. That's my project this week. And I'm still grading your papers. That's ongoing till the end of the semester. So anyway, what are we doing today? Today we're doing something that's very appropriate to what we're going through. Horror. That's right. Welcome to Horror Week. In both the film class and television, I want you guys to look at horror and look at some clips. I'm going to assign some clips. It's up to you if you want to watch them. I'm not going to sign another paper and probably till the end of this week, so don't worry about that yet. But you'll have a paper you're supposed to be doing. You're working on it now. Now I'm not going to overload you with this stuff. But this is unprecedented what we're going through. Why does horror connect to the culture? What I constantly go over and over in both of these courses is, how is the culture reflecting what's going on in Hollywood? And how is Hollywood reflecting what's going back into the culture? During the 30s, 20s, silence, we had horror movies. We had Dr. Caligari's Cabinet, and we had Nosferatu and others, modern horror stories, very well done. still horrifying to this day. And they're beautiful black and white horror, and it makes it even more horrifying because it looks like it's real. Doesn't look like Hollywood fake. Well, they're not Hollywood movies. Those are both German movies, and the Germans knew how to do horror. All I have to say is look at World War II. Horror is their specialty. That's the Nazis. I realize that, not the filmmakers. Some great filmmakers came out of that era and escaped to Hollywood with their lives because most of them were Jews and they had to get out. And the ones that didn't were sent to the camps. Fascism hates intellectuals. They hate teachers. They hate artists. They hate creative people. They hate homosexuals. They hate anybody who's the other. They hate anybody who might have an idea because that's what they fear is ideas. And you know what? Filmmakers are always putting ideas out there for the public to look at. And some cultures don't like that. And they try to stop it. And they try to censor it. And some of them do very well at it. And some of them do poorly. Well, the horror shows in the 30s were brought on because Nazism was coming through Europe. This is for both classes. It pertains. It was coming through Europe. Oh, by the way, you guys see my self-portrait back there? That's right. That's right. Anyway, horror in the 30s in American movies mostly were monster movies like Frankenstein's Monster, The Mummy, Werewolf, Dracula. These were iconic monster movies of the 30s in a way that they're making these monsters that Hollywood could fight Nazism. This is their way of kind of saying something evil is happening out in the world. There's a monster loose. It's Dracula. Except for it wasn't Dracula. It was the fascists who were coming our way. And so those are popular in the 30s, hugely popular. Do they look that scary now? No, they're not scary, but they're a cautionary tale of people running amok with mob mentality. If you look at Frankenstein's monster, it's Frankenstein, folks, but everybody calls the monster Frankenstein. It doesn't have a name. It's not his fault that he was built out of dead parts. He didn't do it. He's not really to blame for his violent tendencies. He actually wants love. The monster wants love. And in Frankenstein Part 2, Bride of Frankenstein, which is actually a superior film, Dr. Frankenstein builds a female monster so he can have a mate. And guess what, folks? She rejects him. The monster rejects the other monster because he wasn't hot enough, or didn't have six-pack abs, or didn't drive a Porsche, or didn't have a nice car, or he wasn't funny. He didn't like to take walks on the beach. She rejects him. And you know what that means? It's over. And of course, he goes on a rampage and kills the people who need to be killing. Hell hath no fury like a monster scorn. In the 40s, we didn't have too many horror films. We had a few. The 50s, they really start coming out again. These were mostly horror films that were dealing with the atomic age. We had some great ones. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a cautionary tale about fascism or communism, actually, taking over our emotions, taking over who we are. If you haven't seen it, I hope you do. They've made a couple of them. Watch any of them. But the first one is the best. Don Siegel directed it in the 50s. And essentially, pod people from outer space have invaded Earth, and they start taking over who we are. And they start mimicking who we are. And except for they take your body over, and they strip it of all emotions. You no longer feel sadness. You no longer feel happiness. You no longer can love, feel passion, feel creative. They strip it all down. They think that's healthy. And that was a cautionary tale about communism, supposedly, when that movie came out. and it still upholds to this day, very much so. Pod people, I see them everywhere, and you know who they are when you see them. My point is, then we had other horror films that were based on the atomic bombs, usually, because we're doing all this atomic testing in those days, and great horror film called Them, about giant ants out in the desert. These giant ants. When I say giant, folks, they're as big as your house, and they're attacking people out in the desert, because all this stuff always happens out in the desert, because that's where they did the nuclear testing in Nevada and in White Sands, New Mexico. I mean, they developed the nuclear bomb, the atomic bomb in New Mexico that we dropped on Japan to win the war. Other movies came out at the same time. We're dealing with the same things of alien philosophies, alien creatures coming to get us, to take our minds away. Another great one's The Thing, the original Thing. The remake is gory and it's interesting to watch, but to me, it doesn't have half the psychological effect that the original does. You know, I'm going to go back to the original on everything. I love black and white, and I love what these filmmakers who didn't have a bunch of money, they had primitive technology compared to now. They could do anything now, and that's the problem with it. They do anything now, and so it's gorier, bloodier, more fast, furious, more loud soundtrack, more. In the old days, it was like real life. It actually felt like life. Your grandparents' life, you know, not your life, and not my life either, folks. I'm not that old. Anyway, and so these movies are great. And there were other ones. There were Attack of the Crab People. There was the giant tarantula out in the desert of Nevada going after everybody because they breed on nuclear waste, and they're freaks now, and they're wandering the atmosphere. And it's another cautionary tale about our atmosphere. We're polluting our atmosphere. Godzilla, what do you think that comes from? Has anybody seen Godzilla? Godzilla is a nuclear mutant from the ocean. He comes out of the ocean. He or she, Godzilla, I'm thinking it's male. I don't know. He's pissed off. I know that. And he takes his revenge. But he's not created. We created him. Our modern times created Godzilla. And he runs havoc. And these are cautionary tales about technology and chemicals, chemical warfare, the whole bit. So the things that I had you guys watch last week, my film class, you watched the documentary about the 60s that you're going to have the quiz on. Television class, you're writing the paper on that first episode of The Stand, which it's called The Plague, folks, and very relevant right now. Yes, it's hyper dramatic and hyper, but hell, we're getting hyper every day. Who knows where this is going to end? I mean, the National Guard has been called out into some areas. In The Stand, it becomes martial law, and whoever has a gun wins the day. The fear runs rampant, I should say, and rapidly running fear. Anyway, so for those people in the film class, why don't you watch some clips? There's a lot of great horror films out there, and some cheesy ones. Now, when I think it's cheesy, I think mostly the slasher movies. But they're there. They're not my cup of tea, because you could defeat a monster with somebody with a sickle or Michael Myers from Halloween, but it's not easy to eat. It's not easy to defeat an unknown monster, like in The Exorcist, Satan. How do you defeat Satan? You bring in a couple of priests, and hopefully they do it. Well, one priest dies, they all die, but they save the little girl. So watch the little girl, and nothing's more horrifying than an innocent child being taken over by an evil entity. And that was popular in this era, the 70s. We're coming out of Vietnam. Hollywood has got the auteur filmmakers working now, and they started, and William Friedkin, who had done French Connection of all things, directs The Exorcist. Huge box office success, huge. And then later on, there was The Omen, about the evil child. Children are evil. Let's face it. Those of you who have them, you know what I'm talking about. And in the 60s, we had Rosemary's Baby, where the devil is impregnating the virgin. Mia Farrow with her little boy haircut. Directed by Roman Polanski. Rapist, convicted child raper, who's now living in Europe and still making movies. Anyway, so these are some films to look for. Hill House, The Haunting of Hill House, came out in 1965 or so, directed by Robert Wise, who had directed, believe it or not, folks, West Side Story and The Sound of Music. And The Day There Stood Still, a great sci-fi film from the 50s. And he helped edit Citizen Kane and The Magnificent Ambersons. He was an incredible filmmaker who made a very diverse films. And he made this great horror film that terrified me as a child. I was about 12 when I saw it. I should not have seen it. My parents don't know that I've gone to the movie and to see this thing. They think I'm seeing some cute Disney movie. I was not. And it scared me for 10 years. It gave me nightmares, that film. And it's all psychological. People spend a weekend in a haunted house. Let me tell you, folks, it's a haunted house. But there's no monster. You never see anything. It's all psychological. And it's truly terrifying. And they've remade it a couple times into a movie. But of course, they have the gore factor. They have to ratchet it up, the gore factor, for the modern movies. And it's a TV series now. It streams on some channels. I started watching it, but it's actually creepy. Why are they in this house? It's the typical thing. You're in the house. Evil is in it. When I say a house, folks, we're talking 20 bedrooms, 30 bathrooms. It's like a house that no human could live in, or that works a regular job. And they always separate, and it depends on them separating. And so when they go to bed at night, guess what? They all go to separate wings of the house. Why would you do that? Why don't you just spend the whole night in one room around the fireplace and barricade the door? But then you wouldn't have the horror. You wouldn't have the mystery. And because people have to be stupid in these things. Just look at any of the slasher movies where the kids go off for the weekend and they're going to party at the camp out in the middle of nowhere, usually in a forest somewhere. Just look at Evil Dead. You'll know what I'm talking about. They had a bunch of these things, and these kids are going to party out there, and they're going to have sex out there. And guess what? Cautionary tale for you people are going to have sex and party out in the woods. You will be punished for it, because there's always some evil creature out there that's going to get you. And Evil Dead is great that way, and it's actually terrifying and really beautifully done, but also has a sense of humor, which I think is the key to the success of that film. Especially the sequels are really funny and gory and gruesome, but funny. And so you have a little bit of relief as you're looking at the terror and the horror. And some people wonder, what's the difference? What makes a horror film? What makes it a terror? Terror and horror, are they the same? Well, I don't believe they are. You could Google it. You could look it up. To me, horror is something that is truly, you can't put your hand on it. The evil is real. It could be psychological. It could be spiritual, religious. Whereas terror, in my opinion, is like Jaws. There's nothing horrifying about Jaws. It's terrifying. Nobody wants their legs dangling in the water as a 40-foot shark is trolling underneath your feet. So Jaws is to me, a terrorizing film. And a lot of these slasher films deal with terror, which is usually adrenaline rushed and makes a lot of money at the box office, because a lot of people want to see that. When Jaws came out in 1975, as you'll see in that documentary, if you watch it, you should watch it by now, film class. You'll see what I mean. It made a boatload of money, the first money to ever movie to reach $100 million. That was unprecedented, and it kind of started the downturn of serious films and films that were kind of for adults, and made it Hollywood look to blockbusters and multi-budgeted B movies of things. And yes, folks, that's what Jaws is. Then Star Wars came in, and we know where we are now with that. We're still trying to go after that box office dollar the same way. So I'll be talking about that later. It's in the documentary though. But anyway, on TV class, folks, look at these TV shows that are so popular right now. Zombie apocalypse is on us, right? It's for reals. I just went down to the store tonight, and half the people now got their face masks on, and they stare at you weird. Because if you don't have a face mask, or if you like kind of get too close to them in the aisle, they kind of look at you strange. So all of a sudden you become the enemy, or are they the enemy? Or who's the enemy? We don't know. And zombies are huge right now. Was it Walking Dead? Come on, it's been a huge hit for 5 years. And it's not going to end. We've had movies, zombie apocalypse. Zombies are everywhere. And zombies, the first zombie movie was made a long time ago, White Zombie, in the 30s with Bela Lugosi, and set in where they supposedly come from, the West Indies, and the religions that foster them. And the zombies then were essentially dead people who they used as slaves, as butlers, and people that could work forever, because they don't have to eat, they don't have to do anything. They're dead already. They weren't out to get people. And then George Romero changed all that for essentially how we are now with all the zombies. George Romero did the great movie Night of the Living Dead, and the zombies were coming out of the graves, and they needed to eat people and insatiably to keep going, and they became just eating machines. But they were slow. They were slow moving. If you've seen those movies, they've gotten faster, folks. They're so fast now, you cannot outrun a zombie now. You're going to get it. There is a great skit on Key and Peele where zombies are after them, but they're not after them. The zombies are racist, and they won't touch black people. And so it's a hilarious skit. And so the African Americans, they're totally safe. And they're partying while the zombies are killing all the white people. They just they're brilliant at that. Go watch that skit on Key and Peele, the zombies. It'll take you 10 minutes of your life, and you'll laugh. Anyway, here we go. I don't want to talk too long. I'm talking fast here because we're going to get through this stuff. So Halloween, you got Michael Myers chasing you with a knife, and so many others. And then there's Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Freddy's terrifying, horrifying, and terrifying because it attacks people when you're sleeping. And when you're asleep, you're vulnerable. When you're asleep, you think you're safe. It's the only time of the day you shut everything down, you shut the lights off, it's quiet, you go to sleep, and you think you're safe. Guess what? You're not. How many of you out there to this very day don't like to leave your arms sitting outside the covers, hanging there in the dark night because something might grab it? How many of you I don't have closets, so I can't shut them. Shut closet doors before you go to bed. Or did you do that for your children? Did you do it as a kid? I know you did. How many of you were scared to look under the bed? We were told horror stories by our parents to help us sleep that monsters lurked under our beds. Well, the brilliant thing of Nightmare on Elm Street, they just took that to the next limit. Yes, your bed is not safe. I mean, to this day, if someone breaks into your house, people will go and run. They hide under the covers, like the covers are going to save you. The covers are going to be your protecting. You're going to be protected. Yeah, I would run somewhere else personally now, but as a child, you want to run right towards your bed. because you think you're going to be safe there. No monster's going to get you there. Anyway, so that's happening. But then there's fun. There's these successful series on TV right now, like Strange Things. The children always seem to be smarter than the adults, and that's what that series is all about. All the stuff that's happening in that community, and the children are sounding the alarms. The adults are poo-pooing it, except for some of the smarter adults who will listen to children. Another really clever one that I watched, it was on for a couple of years, called Santa Clarita Diet. It was about zombies. Very funny and gruesome. Drew Barrymore and her husband, he was hilarious. I'm going to forget his name right now, but he was in Justified. And he's also in Deadwood. He was really good in it. They live in suburbia. If you've ever been to Santa Clarita, you know what I'm talking about. It's down by Magic Mountain and Magic Mountain, Six Flags, Southern California. Anyway, they're realtors. She gets bit by a zombie, and she becomes a zombie. But he still loves his wife, and she doesn't want to hurt anybody, but she does crave human flesh. And so they start kind of hunting people who deserve to die so she can have food. And they wrap it all up neat, and it's in the freezer, so she can always have a nice supply. But she is a zombie, folks, and they're living in the suburbs, and her diet is completely all human beings. Even though they might be bad, they're still bad. They're still humans. And they did that for laughs. So, but there's also a cautionary tale there. How don't let you be lulled into thinking that you've got a nice job, you're a realtor, you're living in the suburbs, you got 2 kids, you're living in the nice house. Don't think you're going to be safe in there. Not if you become a zombie. All bets are off. So these are just some of the stuff you guys can look for in film clips. One of the most horrifying films ever made, The Exorcist, when it came out. It was truly horrifying because it really involved a 12-year-old girl. I mean, yes, she's an actress, and her parents are right there off camera. But if you've seen the movie, she does some horrifying things. If you ever have a chance to read the book, don't read it and think you're going to not have nightmares, because it's twice as horrifying as the movie. I don't read those kind of books, but I was with a twisted girlfriend who loved that kind of stuff, and she forced me to read it, and it was terrifying. The book has got scenes in it that the movie doesn't. Anyway, hardcore movie when a child is taken over. That's truly evil. So that's what I'm talking about today, is horror. I'm going to sign more papers later on in the week. Hope you get your film people, look for the test tomorrow. Television people, get your paper in on the stand, and you know how to get a hold of me. And so I will see you there when the story of film and television continues. Adios.